You know what? I need the Nikon D820. Don't you? Look, I don't need a Nikon D820. I'd really like one, and I don't need it because the 810 is such an amazing camera, the D810. And I want to tell you why today in this video, why this camera is so very fantastic. It's things like high ISO, dynamic range, and a very large pixel count, which make this a Goliath in 35mm, even today with the new Canons. So let's firstly talk about megapixels. In my world, I do things that are 2 meters, 3 meters wide. So 36 megapixels, which is what this camera provides, is very, very important when you're getting up to those sizes. The difference between, say, 36 and 50 on a 35mm sensor is not that profound. It's not that much of a difference. So this has the megapixels you need for almost every situation. So point number 2 is, and this one's a cracker, it's so important to me, dynamic range. This thing has dynamic range to burn. I think it's 14 stops, something around there, but you know, I don't mind so much about stops. It's just more about when I take a pic on a day like today, bright sun, I can bring up the shadows, I can bring down the highlights, and it's all that information's still there. And for a 36 megapixel sensor, this thing has amazing dynamic range. I can't wait for the next series of cameras, that D820 that we were talking about, that has even more, because this has almost as much as you'd ever need. So that's number 2, dynamic range. And number 3, the most important thing to me, high ISO. This has got great high ISO for a camera that's now almost 3 years old. It still stands on its own. You can use files out of this effectively, 1600, 3200, 64 at a push. You still get that 36 megapixels and you still get that high dynamic range.
So one of the best examples I have of the powers of this camera is an image that I took. It was 10 o'clock at night, I popped out, it was raining, it was winter, and this is where all of those great characteristics of the D810 came into play. I was using high ISO, high dynamic range, and of course I still had my 36 megapixels. Now why I'm bringing up this particular image, which is called The Date, is because it's just recently been printed 2 meters wide. This is a photograph taken at night under street lights in the rain. Looks fantastic.
So what would I love to see in a Nikon D820? Look, a few more megapixels doesn't hurt. 36 to 42, 45, doesn't make that much difference, to be honest. Dynamic range is always, like you can always have more dynamic range. A couple more stops there would be good. And the only thing that's improved with other cameras like the D5, D500 is the focusing systems. So it would be nice to see the latest in focusing systems. Dynamic range, high ISO, 36 megapixels. Those 3 things, they're the most important things with the camera. Because, you know, frame rates and focusing and all that sort of stuff, it's all very similar amongst cameras in a price range. But this one's very special. The sensor in it is very special, and what Nikon did with that Sony sensor is very special. So if you've been holding off and wondering, this is an amazing camera, and they're probably going to get cheap pretty soon. And if the D820 comes out, these will probably drop in price a lot, and I would definitely get my hands on one. I loved it so much I actually had 2. The D810 is the king. It's absolutely the king. Long live the king. And then the D820 will come along and long live that king. Let's hope it comes out soon. What's it going to be? Give me your feedback, give me your thoughts. Go get yourself one of these if you don't have one. Amazing, amazing.